What? What started as a snide comment would spiral into a legal hurricane, and no one saw it coming. It was just another morning at The View. The lights came up, the crowd cheered, and the hosts, seasoned, smug, and sharp-tongued, were in rare form. Joy Behar opened the show with her usual mix of sarcasm and political shade. Sunny Hostin followed, with that perfectly rehearsed condescension. And then, as always, came Whoopi Goldberg, delivering her opinions like commandments from on high. That morning's guest was Caroline Leavitt, a young Republican spokeswoman who had been making waves with her unapologetic stance on media bias. Dressed professionally, composed, and respectful, she took her seat at the table, a lion's den disguised as a coffee clatch. At first it was civil. The questions were sharp, but expected. Then came the pivot. Joy struck first, smirking as she said, "You're very well spoken, Caroline, so..." For someone who just rode the TikTok train to politics, the audience chuckled on cue. Then Whoopi leaned in. "You're cute," she said with a chuckle, "but when you don't have anything of substance to say, you just blab." The air shifted. Caroline blinked. She didn't fire back. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even flinch. She simply pressed her lips together, gave a small professional smile, and waited. And then Sunny chimed in. "Honestly, Caroline, I think your whole career is just an echo chamber of white privilege. If your last name were Gonzalez or Mohammed, would you even be sitting here?" The laughter returned. The applause sign lit up. Cameras zoomed in to catch Whoopi chuckling. The moment trended on Twitter within minutes. #Caroline gets owned. But behind that controlled smile, Caroline's mind was racing. Because what they didn't know was, she wasn't there for their approval. She was there for evidence. They laughed, she listened, and then she got to work. After the broadcast aired, the social media storm rolled in. Clips were shared, memes were made, and comment sections exploded with laughter, or outrage, depending on which echo chamber you lived in. But while Twitter debated, Caroline stayed silent. No public statements, no interviews, no hashtags, just silence. Behind the scenes, however, a storm was building. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from supporters, legal minds, and political allies poured in. The footage had struck a nerve, because it wasn't just rude, it wasn't just TV drama, it was character assassination. In her apartment that night, Caroline sat alone, watching the segment again, not for emotion, but for detail. She took notes, timestamps, inflections, the body language, the way Whoopi sneered when she dismissed her opinion, the way Joy rolled her eyes, the smirk Sunny wore when she questioned Caroline's identity, and the audience, how they were encouraged to laugh. Then came the breakthrough. A message from an anonymous ABC staffer landed in her inbox. A whistleblower, one who had been on set that day, one who had seen the prep notes. "There's more to this than you think," the message read. Attached was a PDF, then another, production notes, camera cues, suggested tension-building edits, even a reference to leaning into confrontation for ratings. She didn't blink. She didn't panic. Instead, she called her lawyer. "Let's begin," she said. And just like that, a lawsuit was born. Not out of outrage, but of precision. When the papers dropped, Hollywood shook. Monday morning, 9 a.m. sharp, the courthouse fax machine began spitting out page after page. Emails flooded inboxes across New York and Los Angeles. And by 9:15, a thunderclap echoed across the entertainment industry. Caroline Leavitt versus ABC, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, filed, official, public, an $800 million defamation lawsuit. The number alone was enough to turn heads. But it was the claims that lit the fire. Willful character defamation, coordinated media harassment, exploitation of political bias, and an internal culture of silencing dissenting voices. Every quote, every clip, every offhand remark from The View was documented, catalogued, and timestamped in an evidence file the size of a college thesis. The paperwork painted a damning picture, not of spontaneous commentary, but of premeditated character assassination. Legal analysts on cable news scrambled to weigh in. Conservative pundits erupted with praise. Liberal commentators went eerily silent. And in the middle of it all, Caroline Leavitt said nothing. Her legal team released one statement. This lawsuit isn't about ideology, it's about accountability. No one, not even celebrities behind a desk, gets to mock, belittle, and dismantle someone's character without consequences. The news reached Whoopi on set. According to insiders, she scoffed. "It's just politics," she reportedly said. She wants 15 minutes. But behind closed doors, the network executives weren't laughing. ABC's legal department called an emergency meeting. PR scrambled to contain the fallout. Sponsorship teams fielded emails from concerned advertisers because this wasn't a Twitter spat. This wasn't an op-ed. This was court. And for once, The View wouldn't get to cut to commercial. She was untouchable. Until now. The days that followed felt like a slow-motion collapse. Whoopi Goldberg, once the untouchable icon of daytime television, suddenly found herself playing defense. Her name, now attached to legal documents circulating on every major news outlet, became a lightning rod. On Tuesday's episode of The View, she tried to brush it off with a half-hearted chuckle. "Well, folks," she said to the audience, "apparently you can't even have an opinion anymore without getting sued." The crowd laughed, but not as loud. The energy had shifted. Joy chimed in. "Guess we better all be careful what we say, huh?" More laughter, but Sonny looked nervous, and the producer in the control room was visibly sweating. Then the emails leaked. Internal communications from ABC producers discussing how to draw fire from Caroline, push buttons, and keep the segment spicy. Direct quotes. The press had a field day. Conservative media blasted it across headlines. Liberal media started pulling back. Whoopi's Wikipedia page was updated 14 times in 1 hour. Former fans began asking hard questions. Her apology tour began, not on air, but behind the scenes. Private calls, damage control, but it was too late. Advertisers began to pause campaigns. 2 sponsors, one in cosmetics, another in tech, publicly announced they were reviewing partnerships. ABC called a second emergency meeting. Legal counsel advised everyone to remain silent. HR warned staff against internal leaks. Whoopi, for the first time in years, left the set without addressing the crowd. The next day, she didn't show up at all. A stand-in host filled her chair. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said she was ill. Others said she was suspended. One source claimed she had broken down in tears in the executive lounge. Caroline? Still silent. Her composure, her restraint, it only added to the narrative. That of a young woman standing tall while a media juggernaut crumbled under the weight of its own arrogance. And by the time the court date was set, the countdown wasn't just on the calendar. It was in every newsroom, every boardroom, and every living room across America. The courtroom wasn't just tense, it was electric. The courthouse was surrounded by flashing cameras and whispered speculation. Pundits circled like vultures. Protesters waved signs, some supporting Whoopi, others championing Caroline. By the time the bailiff called the courtroom to order, every seat was filled, and there they were, face to face at last. Whoopi Goldberg entered in a dark blazer, sunglasses on, her expression unreadable. She didn't glance at the gallery. She didn't acknowledge the press. Her legal team flanked her, stone-faced. Caroline Leavitt walked in moments later, No security entourage, no theatrics, just a determined gaze and a leather folder in her arms. She nodded at her lawyers and took her seat. Opening arguments began with fire. Caroline's team laid out their thesis like a suspense novel. They didn't just argue defamation, they showed intent, targeting, and planning. Then came the footage. Clips from The View were played, raw, unedited. Joy's smirks, Whoopi's biting sarcasm, Sunny's veiled contempt. Every comment, every chuckle, every dismissive wave was displayed on a massive screen for all to see. And as the camera panned across the courtroom, Whoopi Goldberg's expression shifted. Her fingers trembled as she gripped the table. Her eyes welled as the words she once spoke with laughter were now stripped of their laughter. Then came the bombshell. Emails, leaked documents from ABC producers, internal memos discussing Caroline as a soft target. One note even read, "Push her to the edge, see if she cracks." A collective gasp filled the courtroom. The defense fumbled. Whoopi's attorney objected. The judge overruled. Then came the twist. A second name, not just Whoopi, Joy, or Sunny, but a fictional ABC executive, Marla Grayson, who, according to several memos, had ordered producers to weaponize interviews with conservative guests for ratings. Caroline's lawyer pointed directly at the back row. "She's in this courtroom today, hiding." The judge called for order. And just like that, the narrative shifted again. This wasn't just about Whoopi anymore. It was about a culture. This wasn't just about Whoopi anymore. This was about every voice ever silenced on national TV. The media had a field day. ABC power structure implodes in courtroom bombshell, read one headline. Hollywood's reckoning begins, read another. The trial continued, and with every passing day, it grew less about insults and more about infrastructure. Expert witnesses were called. Former producers from rival networks, media ethicists, political commentators, they all painted the same picture. That daytime TV had become a weapon, a shiny stage for one-sided takedowns, that beneath the laughter and applause was a system designed to humiliate dissent. One former producer testified, "There were lists, people we knew would play well as villains." Caroline Leavitt was on that list months before her appearance. Marla Grayson was called to testify. She denied knowledge of the memos, but under cross-examination she slipped. "We pre-interviewed her knowing she'd make the hosts uncomfortable. That discomfort was part of the strategy." The room froze. Screenshots from internal Slack channels were shown. One read, "We want the fireworks. Don't let her get through untouched." Whoopi, once stoic, lowered her head. Caroline remained still. And as the nation watched, a bigger truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't just one woman being mocked. This was a legacy network treating differing opinions like punching bags, and the fists were finally being held accountable. She was once the loudest voice in the room. Now she couldn't even look up. By day 5 of the trial, the courtroom tension had morphed into something more human. The bravado was gone. The noise outside faded. Inside, it was quiet. Whoopi took the stand. The courtroom leaned in. She began confidently, talking about her career, her values, her right to speak freely. But then the questions turned. "Do you remember calling Caroline a blabbermouth?" "I might have." "Do you recall mocking her upbringing?" "No, I mean, not like that." The prosecutor played a clip. Whoopi's voice rang through the speakers. The courtroom saw it, heard it, felt it. Whoopi began to unravel. Her voice cracked. She reached for water, avoided eye contact. A tissue was handed to her. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "I didn't think she'd be hurt." Caroline remained quiet. Then came the question that broke everything. "Do you take responsibility for your words?" A long pause. "Yes." The room held its breath, because for the first time Whoopi Goldberg was no longer the untouchable host with a mic. She was a woman who had gone too far, And Caroline? She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply nodded, as if to say, "That's all I ever wanted." When the gavel fell, silence swept the courtroom. The verdict came after only 6 hours of deliberation. The courtroom was silent. The cameras outside were deafening. Inside, everyone waited. "We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Caroline Leavitt." Whoopi closed her eyes. "We award damages in the amount of $47 million. The gasp was instant. ABC issued a statement within minutes. They respected the decision. They were reviewing all programming. Sponsorships that had paused now withdrew entirely. And Whoopi Goldberg, she issued a public apology the next day, on video. No makeup, no set, just her and a shaky, handheld camera. "I said things I shouldn't have. I used my platform to hurt, not help. I was wrong." The View was placed on indefinite hiatus. In contrast, Caroline walked out of court to thunderous applause, not because she had won money, but because she had proven something more important, that media giants aren't above the law, that dignity can still win, and that sometimes the smallest voice in the room turns out to be the most powerful. The nation didn't just witness a legal victory. They witnessed a cultural turning point, and it all began with one woman who refused to stay silent. They tried to shut her down. Instead, they turned her into a symbol. The dust had barely settled from the courtroom chaos, but something bigger had already begun. Caroline Leavitt didn't throw a party. She didn't go on a victory tour. Instead, she gave a quiet interview on a small conservative podcast, thanking her supporters and stating plainly, this was never about revenge. This was about respect. The internet disagreed. #Justice for Caroline trended for 3 straight days. Talk shows, think pieces, and even late-night hosts suddenly shifted tone. She wasn't just the woman who sued Whoopi Goldberg. She was something more, a symbol of defiance, a representative of every guest who'd ever been ambushed, dismissed, or humiliated for speaking out. She received invitations to speak at universities, law forums, and political conferences. Her calm demeanor in court became a meme. But not a mocking one. It was a rallying cry. One network offered her a regular commentary spot. She declined. "I'm not here for fame. I'm here for fairness." When asked what came next, she answered with a smile. "Let's just say the fight for truth isn't over." In a world addicted to outrage, her composure was magnetic. In a media culture of clickbait, her clarity cut through the noise. The power of restraint had never looked so powerful. And as the ratings for The View tanked, a new voice was rising, stronger, clearer, and ready for whatever came next. If even Whoopi Goldberg can be held accountable, no one in media is safe anymore. The courtroom showdown between Caroline Leavitt and Whoopi Goldberg wasn't just tabloid fodder. It was a mirror, a reflection of what happens when celebrity meets unchecked power, when networks prioritize drama over dignity, when ratings replace responsibility. But it was also something else. It was a reminder that no voice is too small and no platform is too big to answer for its words. Caroline didn't just sue a host, she shattered an illusion that fame equals freedom from consequence, and in doing so, she drew a line in the sand. From now on, media giants may think twice before they mock, belittle, or destroy reputations for the sake of a viral clip. Because the public isn't just watching, they're recording, they're remembering, and they're responding. So what do you think? Did justice finally win? Was Caroline Leavitt right to fight back? Should The View return at all? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe in fearless reporting, accountability, and the power of standing your ground, smash that like button, share this story, and subscribe for more explosive deep dives. Because if this trial taught us anything, it's that the era of consequence has only just begun.